right into it.
Sure, yeah.
So since you mentioned ride-alongs,
Right.
As you transitioned into the green industry,
Right.
which maybe we'll get into a bit of your background too. Ride-alongs, was that a part of the strategy? Just like, hey, let me get my hands dirty and like see what these folks are doing, and how did you make that transition and kind of educate yourself on the industry?
It's kind of just a fundamental. It's a great question, by the way. It's a fundamental like approach that I take to understanding how to like speak to a market and build for a product in that market. I don't think you can do that without getting out and talking to the customer, but also just experiencing what the customer does day in and day out.
Yeah.
And how they're leveraging or not leveraging the software.
Right.
So for me, it doesn't matter if that's at SingleOps or at Traxera or at MemberClicks. My whole engagement strategy and also success strategy was around build for the customer and they'll build for you.
Right. Yeah. So you've seen a lot of transition with, kind of, you mentioned led some of the thinking around bringing LMN into the fold. Maybe I'll ask a little bit more about how that's going, and because I know people are kind of like, what is going on?
Yeah.
But from a people perspective, from a just like transition change management perspective, what are things that you've learned in this experience and others that are helpful to help people get through that change and remain motivated and like excited and amped up to go to work?
There's no like one way to do it.
Sure.
I've been a part of 13 acquisitions and integrations over the last 6 years. And so to answer your first question, I think the SingleOps and LMN integration are going really, really well. And what I mean by integration is one of the first principles that we put together for the kind of initial town hall when we announced to the organization that these two companies were coming together was we want to build one company and one team, right, to go win the green industry. And I think the keys to success in doing that are always like laying like a vision out for people. And then what are the values that are going to be guiding that vision? And so we laid out the vision of wanting to become synonymous with the green industry when it came to software. And we laid out the core values that drive and like motivate us. We laid out the first principles that we're using as the lens for the integration and merger from a strategy perspective and the people perspective. And then you go on a listening tour, right? And I've found it the single most valuable thing you can ever do is just create the space and grace for people to share their thoughts, their fears, their violent disagreements on the subject. And so, I did a blitz of every single employee at, LMN and created 20-minute interval one-on-one conversations with anybody that would take it. And since then, we've just communicated regularly our vision, our values, our first principles, and what we're trying to accomplish. And I think it's created purpose to the friction and the chaos.
Right.
And so I think most people can get through anything if they have purpose. I think that's what's made it successful so far.
Love it. So right. What's maybe different? And it could be industry related. It could just be, it could be economic. It could be whatever. From times when you've seen these types of transitions before to what you're working on now.
It's bigger.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is a pretty sizable company now that has a big footprint in the green space. We have, approaching 5,000 customers combined. We touch landscape, we touch tree care, we touch irrigation, we touch maintenance, we touch design build. Through our Greenius platform, we touch everything. I think most people forgot that LMN has Greenius.
Yeah.
I actually think Greenius was one of the more interesting and intriguing components of the acquisition because it's a good way to create an awesome tool for folks to use to onboard new employees, but also make that attraction of new employees good. And there's something that's kind of like universal amongst our tree care customers and our landscape customers is it's really hard to find good people.
Yeah.
And so I think the size and magnitude is different than the last acquisitions that I've done. I think the industry is totally different.
Yeah.
You know, I've fallen in
Even
love.
from towing?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Two totally different worlds. Yeah. I've deeply fallen in love with both these industries. I also really love the SMB space.
Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah.
It's great people doing good work and just trying to make it work.
Yeah. I mean, and they're also the fabric of our economic culture.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to any community, there's going to be, depending on size of metro area, there's going to be folks that know the kind of 10 or 12 landscape and tree care professionals in the marketplace, right? And then they know pretty much all the other small businesses around too.
Who knows everybody else?
That's right. And they're the ones creating jobs in their community.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are creating prosperity for their employees. They're the ones that are actually driving our economy. It's not even close. If you look at the overwhelming majority of our economy, it's driven by small to mid-sized businesses. Yeah. And I love serving this particular flavor of that.
Yeah, love it. So maybe take us a little flash forward. And I'm sure, having done this several times, you've got a pretty good idea of what's to come.
Yeah.
First of all, how do you order that? How do you order the steps of, you mentioned kind of like some of the initial things after the listening tour, after you kind of get your hands around it.
Yeah.
How do you order the steps? I know it's probably different for everyone, but how do you diagnose order of operations, or do you do it all at the same time?
No, it's really good. They are all different.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular case, like our prioritize and execute strategy is build a foundation and then make an awesome house. Mm. We have three really great platforms today, products. We envision a world where we can leverage the best of all of them, right, and create an awesome home for the green industry to leverage software that can scale their business, help them create customers for life, and unlock their potential. Those are three kind of like guiding principles for us. And so the way you create like a strategy around that is just like you do anything else when you're building something great is like, well, is the foundation strong? Right. If it's not, go fortify the foundation. And that starts with people, tech, and customer. Those are the foundations of any software business, not in order. And then after that, you start to think about how do you go to market and attack the strategy from like getting as many customers onto your products and solutions as humanly possible. And then after that, you think about maximizing the opportunity in that customer base and figuring out the things that they want to leverage or they do leverage in their day-to-day business that is forcing them to have multiple installs, multiple software inputs, training multiple people on different platforms. Right. If you're an SMB customer, you're typically, can I get one software solution that integrates with multiple? That
the unicorn.
Yes, correct.
The unicorn
that's right. Yeah. But if you can do 80% of what they really need done, and you can do that pretty well, like that becomes magical for them in terms of leveraging efficiencies across the organization.
Yeah. So this is a question that I have that I'll mask in the example of, we're at the Winter Management Conference, somebody comes up to you and says, Mark, what's going to change when, how's it going over there, right, other than the good?
Right, yeah.
What's the cut deeper of like, how you're thinking about the next steps of what folks are going to see as they log in or, kind of start to see things change maybe with the branding or whatever else. What are kind of some of the next pins to fall?
Yeah, I think it's a really, that is probably the most difficult question to answer, with clarity, because what you have to do is you have to take a look at the customer demand. What is the overlap of the customer? So you could easily say that tree care folks and landscaping professional folks, they all do estimates. They all send proposals. They all generate an invoice. Right. They all want to bill. They all want to schedule. They all want to integrate with QuickBooks or some other accounting platform. So there's like a lot of commonalities from a software perspective. Yep. So I think the things that you'll start to see first is like, well, how do we leverage the good of both of those like really, really quickly across both customer bases? Yeah. I think the easiest thing to say to most customers is essentially the products that you're using today will just get better for the foreseeable future. and you don't really need to worry about like migration or like switching platforms or anything along those lines. I think the branding conversation is a little more tricky, you know, because you do have a very strong brand equity with LMN in the landscape space. And then you have really strong brand equity with SingleOps in the tree care space. And then how do you leverage those? And what do you want to say to the green space in general moving forward? And we're actually going through a process both internally and externally to better define how we say that, like who we are as a company. And you should expect changes there, you know, over the course of the next 6 to 8 months.
Exciting.
Yeah.
That's a fun and daunting project.
Yes, it is, for sure. Like that part is actually hard because it has so much nuance to it. And people fall in love with brands.
Yeah.
Like, I tell people all the time.
It's a dangerous game to play.
100%. Yeah. And there's all kinds of like moving parts that you have to think of that, you know, are hidden little yetis along the way.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe one last question for you. How's it been personally for you?
How's what?
How has the change been personally for you?
Oh, it's been awesome. Like every time I go through this, I grow in so many ways. But the reason why is it creates opportunities like this. It creates opportunities to meet new people, talk about the business, get different perspectives.
Yeah.
You know, you get to talk to different customer bases. You get to talk to different employees. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a change, you know, maybe addict's a strong word, but like, I'm definitely somebody who seeks change, seeks growth, seeks opportunity, you know.
Yeah.
And when it's happening, it's terribly exciting for me. And I really enjoy getting out and talking to customers. You know, I shared recently on social media that over the last year and a half, I've talked to probably over 1,000 landscape and tree care professionals, like in person, you know, or over Zoom or on that, but mainly in person. I've done truck ride-alongs. I've sat in facilities. I've been in trailers. You know, you name it, I've done it. That's the actual fun part.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's actually really exciting about it. It's like talking to people, hearing what their problems are, like whether or not we can solve it or not, because we can't solve everything.
Sure.
Despite our best desires. But like, so for me, it's like all great. For my family, you'd have to ask them. It's probably different, you know, because it puts a lot of stress on time and, you know, being away and travel and all that stuff. So,
yeah. It's the travel bit is, I'm jealous of our customers sometimes because you know, in a lot of ways not, you know, they've got very, very challenging problems to solve too.
100%,
But yeah, well, thanks for taking time to chat a little bit and share a little about what's going on.
I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Any other time.